Hello and welcome to the show tonight. My name is Laurie Smith, and this is April is the National Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month down in the States, and I almost always broadcast during this time. Usually not 30 days in a row. I'm going to broadcast. I haven't done that for a long time. I figured I'm going to try to broadcast, and I'm just going to do it for the month of April, all dealing with child abuse prevention and child abuse prevention awareness information. I've probably gone over it a million times already. I'm just going to do it again because it's so important to me. Growing up abused, I know what these kids are going through out here. I mean, on some level, and so children are dying, and children are being, they're still being abused. Nothing's changed. Thankfully, we have more awareness now, but that's because people are speaking about it. People are actually talking about it. And let me just move my computer. It's pointing up to the ceiling. Um, you know, there's a whole lot more noise being made about this. There's better laws in place. People are actually making changes. Governments are making changes. Local, municipal cities and towns and whatnot are making changes to try to protect children from abuse. It's just so important to, keep talking about this. I'm just a regular person. I just happen to be a survivor of child abuse, right? But, I'm not, some government official who can make these changes. But it's just keeping this information out here and realizing that children need our voices, all of us. We all should be speaking about this and speaking out against it. Why is there child abuse? Because somewhere, somehow, somebody's not doing the right thing by a child, right? And that's in every neighborhood, in every city, and in every town, and in every community around the world. So it's because they're either out of fear, don't want to rock the boat. If it's an abusive situation, obviously it is. If a child's being abused, and sometimes it's just for gain. Children are trafficked, or sex trafficking and whatnot, child pornography and stuff like that. It's just for personal gain. So nobody's gonna get that child any help or those children any help because they're making money off that child or those children, right? Which has always been a problem. Um, so exploitation, is a big issue. It's just so important that we all get involved. I wish everybody would speak about this stuff. I'm not uncomfortable talking about it because I grew up in this situation. I've seen some horrible, ugly stuff in my lifetime. And, nobody should have to, none of us should have to know about this stuff. It's really unfortunate that we even have to deal with this stuff. I had to live with it, so it's stuck in it's just who I am. You know what I mean? As a survivor of child abuse, I can't really. I guess I could have gone into denial like some people do, but it just didn't work for me. So, I was never really in denial. But now I'm like I have a voice. So 2007 basically is when I really started to realize like I need to be speaking out about this. I know firsthand what this is all about. So and a lot of people around that time, especially around that time, were speaking out, and a lot of survivors of different types of trauma and different types of child abuse. And so it's just so important for everybody to get involved and do what you can, and you know, do whatever you can to make a difference in this mess, right? Um, and tonight we are going to. I've got a troll here that I'm going to get rid of. Sorry, folks, but I have to get rid of a troll here and get rid of this garbage here. Unbelievable. Anyway, we have some articles that we're going to look at. I want to talk tonight about the issue with child sex trafficking in general, and just looking at the issues that are going on right now with children in the Ukraine. Um, this is going on around the world, so it's not just Ukraine. I mean, obviously, children around the world running, from war or some sort of horrible uh, situation going on between governments fighting. Um, whether they call it a war or not, it's not. It doesn't have to necessarily be called a war. It could be called, some sort of an incursion or something. I mean, look at all the Syrians that had to run for their lives. Um, a lot of people have had to, just run for their lives, and children get separated from their families, or they're, you know, it's not necessarily who wants to lose the children, but they become separated, and these children are then very vulnerable, and so it's just absolutely horrific. This stuff that's going on right now. So we're going to take a look at some articles. I put this information in the show information page, so you can go and grab the links and you can look at this yourself. And this is where I've got the information. I'm not going to read the whole articles. I just wanted to bring up some information because I had been thinking about this already as soon as this whole issue with Russia invading Ukraine. And hi, Melissa. How are you? I hope you're okay. It's been a long time. I haven't been around too much lately. Um, I wanted to broadcast, but it just wasn't working out. So I thought, well, eventually I'll get back on there. And so I'm glad to be back, and I'm thankful to be able to continue to do this. I hope that you're okay and everything's going all right. And but this whole thing with children fleeing war, like this article from UNICEF, um, it's UNICEF.org. Children fleeing war in Ukraine at heightened risk of trafficking and exploitation. So I'd already thought about this at the time because I thought, there's going to be so many children who are going to be, um, at risk, right, for being picked up, and especially crossing into borders. Because I had seen, different countries' borders, like Poland or wherever they're running to. Because I had seen this Facebook post from somebody who I've got a lot of Facebook friends, and some of these people I don't really know, and so not that well anyway. And I see their posts now and then, and it's I see this one post saying, "We'll take it." It was from England. Somebody in England had said, "Sure, we'll take your refugees from Ukraine as long as they become my sex slave or something." And that just bothered me, and I blocked that guy. It was like, the world has enough scuzzy people in it and enough scumbags in it without people like that joking around and making fun of the situation. It's not funny, and it's not remotely okay what's going on in this world for people exploiting people, people taking advantage of people, people abusing anybody. I don't care if it's an adult or a child. It's just incredibly wrong. And we have voices. We have the rights to speak about this stuff. We have the right to make decisions in within our government voting, and make sure we get people in there who are going to do the right thing by the people. And we need to, make sure that we're supporting groups who actually get work done. Right now, what they say, there's five. I think there's five humanitarian groups that are actually counted as being, staying over there in the war zone, trying to help children, trying to help people. The men are out fighting, so the husbands, the sons, whatever, they're fighting the Russians. The women and children are running. So they said there's 1.5 million children having fled Ukraine as refugees since February 24th. That's insane. And they said, and countless others displaced by violence inside the country. The threat facing children is real and growing. And they said traffickers often seek to exploit the chaos of large scale population movements. Well, of course they do. And they said what the issue is there's child predators, pimps, and whatnot, trafficking people who are waiting at these borders. And what they're doing is they're just, um, waiting for these people and posing as help. They've got their vehicles there and they're saying, we'll get you to safety. We'll get you, food. We'll get you shelter. We'll get you a place to stay, to these women running with their children. And what they are is they're traffickers. They're They're either pimps or they're traffickers, and they're just going to pick these women up or these children who are on their own and hold them against their will and traffic them in the middle of, like, how sick and twisted can a person be to do something like that in the first place? Why would you think that that's okay? I think that those people that are caught doing that sort of thing, this is just my opinion because it's my show. I think people that get caught doing stuff like that and found guilty should be just lined up and shot. There shouldn't be any trial or jail time or prison time for these people. Just get rid of them because they're just a scourge on the planet, and I don't care who they are. A lot of people say, well, they're doing that because there's no way to make money in those countries, so they have to make money exploiting other people. No, they're just doing it because they're evil, and they don't mind getting involved in evil stuff. Not all those people are evil. A lot of I mean, most of those people running, in Ukraine right now, these women and children, and the men fighting are decent people that just want to live a normal life. They don't, they wouldn't hurt anybody, and they don't. It's just these scuzzy people that are coming in from other countries. They're coming in from wherever they're coming from, wherever they can get access to Poland, because the border there is where these women and children are actually ending up, and that's where these traffickers are hanging out, just waiting and saying, "Hey, we can get you to safety. We can get you to food, to shelter." Um, and sometimes they pose as these groups that are over there, humanitarian aid groups that are over there, and they'll actually have their uniforms, and they're not part of that group, but they're posing as part of that group, and they're picking up women and children. So this is not okay. They said there's many, many hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of children that are ending up at the border that are um, on their own. So there's quite a few that are with their mothers or with another adult, but there's many thousands that are on their own. These are very vulnerable children, and I don't know why this person is allowed to keep doing this. I've actually blocked this person, but they keep coming on. So just give me a sec here so I can block this troll. It's really annoying. And so, yeah, it's just frustrating. So I hope you're okay, Melissa. Just getting out of the hospital, and I hope everything's going okay for you. It's these are tough times. They really are. And it's been a while. I haven't been around too much. I did a few shows here and there, but I've been busy just working and trying to maintain a job, and just kind of trying to keep going myself. So I haven't been doing too much broadcasting, but I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad you're here. I hope that you're all right. Oh, I'm glad you're doing good. Excellent. That's awesome. But yeah, this is a really horrific situation. So I just wanted to bring this to attention because I'm gonna be talking all month. I'm gonna do 30 shows. This is the first one. We're talking about child sex trafficking and exploitation right now. But I've got um, I'll have 30 shows, 30 different shows, all dealing with child abuse prevention and child abuse awareness for the month of April. So this is just the first one, and we're just getting started. So it's just these things are hard to think about, and I think people just feel like, well, what can I do? Just be aware. I think it's just being aware that children in our own areas, it's not just Ukraine, but all over the world, are being trafficked, and they could be in your own town, your own city, in your own neighborhood. Sometimes children are trafficked by their own families, sadly enough, and it's very hard to then help those children because if it's a family member, you know, um, they're controlling the child, and so the child's with the family, so nobody's really looking in on it. Whereas children who are, um, you know, trafficked by someone who it gets a hold of the child, or uh, it's a stranger type thing, that's easier to spot because there's things that they can look for to help these children. So I just, I've got a troll here that's really, I don't know why I can't kick him off because I've already kicked him off and he's still doing this. So how annoying. But anyway, um, they said children fleeing the war in Ukraine need to be screened for their vulnerability as they cross into a neighboring country. Every effort should be made to strengthen screening processes at refugee border crossings. They've got things in place that they're working on, but it's just there's so many people coming. Like they said, there's 1.5 million children who have fled Ukraine as refugees since February 24th. That's 1.5 million children. Like that's insane. That's why they're worried about this situation. And that's the article from UNICEF. So now I want to look at this next article, and it says vigilantes stalk Ukraine border as sex traffickers target fleeing women and children. And this is from theguardian.com. Um, they said volunteers patrol Polish border to fill what they say is dangerous gap in protection for vulnerable refugees. The article, I'm not going to read the whole thing, it's theguardian.org who put this out. Katie Fall and Antonia Kundi and Rosabel Korean in Medyka, Poland. This was March 24th, 2022. So just not that, like a week ago. So they said women and children, refugees fleeing the war in Ukraine to Poland, are being targeted by suspected pimps and sex traffickers operating alone and in gangs, according to the charities working on the border. So they know who some of these people are, not all of them obviously, but they're actually trying to um, get these people who are these pimps and these child sex traffickers and just traffickers in general to sign a, sort of a registry. And these people, as soon as they hear about this, they leave. They basically run off because they don't want to sign a registry. But they're getting license plates now. They're getting descriptions of these people. So they're cracking down on it. But the thing is how many children have slipped through the cracks? How many of those children who crossed over into Poland into other areas are slipping through the cracks? So they're running from a horrible situation of their homes being destroyed, possibly, and they're running for their lives and right into the hands of a trafficker who's going to exploit them. Especially child sexual uh, ex- traffickers. I mean, what's their chances of survival in that? Not very good. So it's just horrific that people do these things to other people, and that's why I said earlier, I'm like, they shouldn't. If those people are found and caught with these children, there shouldn't even be a trial and all of this and jail time. Just line them up and shoot them. Just take them out. They're just a scourge on the planet, and I just think it's wrong. I just really think that's incredibly wrong to take advantage of people who are suffering, and especially children. Those children, it's not their fault. This war is going on, and they have nothing to do with it. They're completely innocent in the situation, and to take advantage of them, to me, that's like the lowest life thing a person could do. And these people have no qualms about it whatsoever. Child sex traffickers, I mean, they're everywhere. They're I mean, I live in North America, so um, hi April, how are you? Oh, it's good to see you, and I'm glad to be back. Actually, yeah, I really wanted to do this. I'm going to speak all the whole month of April. I'm going to do a show every night, 7 or 8 o'clock. So right in there. It depends on whether I'm working. I know what time I'm working to, but I'm just really glad to be able to do this and keep talking about this stuff. It's difficult, and it's not a fun topic, and I'm just willing to tackle it because I know how hard it is for these. I can just imagine. I put myself. I was abused, so I kind of sort of put myself in their place a little bit. Um, just to know that fear and to know, that your life is really at the hands of a monster, right? Who is taking advantage of you in whatever way. This is just not okay, right? And well, thank you. God bless you too, dear. That's awesome. Thank you for reading my books. I really appreciate it. I wrote them, um, and just, you know, I just allowed myself to go back sort of to how I felt and what was going on, and I wanted people just to have a sort of an idea what it's like to actually grow up like that, and to watch their family crumble, sort of be disintegrated around them, and and then trying to kind of come out of it and try to make it as an adult. It's been very difficult. So yeah, I appreciate it. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, and thanks for being for your support for being here. I really appreciate it. This is tough stuff we're talking about, and I know because of the work that I've been doing through the years, and working with advocacy groups, just talking and talking and talking, doing as much work as I can, just trying to make a difference as a volunteer. And I've met survivors who were trafficked as children, sex trafficking victims. So they're adults now, and I've talked to them. I've even interviewed with some of them, and it's just so heartbreaking, right? Um, the stuff that they went through, and they actually survived. They weren't killed. You know, so many of these children who are victims of child sex trafficking schemes are killed. So they're just used, and then they're just killed and dumped somewhere, right? And so it's horrific. It's been going on. I mean, for probably since time began. I wouldn't doubt it. It's been going on a lot longer than we know because it's not back in the old days. They didn't like to talk about this stuff, and they didn't. The general public wouldn't talk about these things. They didn't want to hear about it. They didn't want to know about it, but it was going on. I mean, when I was growing up in the '70s, there was in New Mexico. There was children were going missing. Lots of children, and the police and the FBI and whatnot were trying to figure out who was taking these children, and they finally got enough evidence because well these traffickers, these child sex traffickers, were picking these children up with this big green van, and they actually took photos of it with these children that they had killed um, in the desert, and with the back of the van and what it looked like. The license plate wasn't there or anything. They found these photos. The police did. Whether these crazy, insane, people who killed and murdered these children wanted the police to find them, to find these photos, or what. But they did get a hold of these photos, and they started to search for this van because this van was the vehicle that they were going around stealing these children in. And I was always concerned about, this was in my area where I lived, and I was growing up, and I was always aware of this green van. I was like, man, I don't want to run into that green van. You know what I'm saying? But it's horrific because I mean, I forget how many children's bodies they found in the desert, just strewn. Not the same, not like in a mass grave. They would just use these children, and then when they just died or they killed them, using them for sex, they just throw them out, dead on the road or just off to the side, right? And the police would find their bodies. Just absolutely horrific. And I just don't know how the world can sit here and think that that's okay. You know, uh, you know, it's not okay. Right? What's okay about it? It's absolutely horrific. So I don't mind talking about it because I figure, hey, I've only got so much time. But thank God for the people that do the work. You know, for the people who actually work with the humanitarian aid groups who go into these areas, go into these countries. It doesn't matter whether it's faith based or whether it's secular. It doesn't matter, UNICEF or whatever. Anybody who's doing anything to try to help and save a child from dying, from abuse, from torture, from child sexual abuse or whatever, any type of abuse. I don't care what it um, is okay in my books. You know what I mean? Because I'm a child abuse survivor, and I know what it's like to be abused. So I'm so thankful for people that do this for their career. It's what they choose to do, put themselves in the in the line of danger to go and save children. I think that's wonderful. Teams that work to stop child sexual predators online. There's all sorts of people doing that work, and it's just amazing. So we'll talk about a lot of this because we're going to be talking about this all month. So we'll have plenty of time to be talking about all this stuff. But thank you for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. I had written the books, and I thought, it'd be cool to do videos that to actually show sort of a bit more of the the level of violence, because it was hard to write that in the books. Um, so people could get an idea really of what it's all about, and how damaging it really is. And just it was hard to do those videos. I was very, kind of triggered by it, especially some of them. Um, and but I actually, it was kind of, I was glad to be able to do it because it allowed me to think about some things that I hadn't thought about for a while. That actually were pretty funny. So I was like, because I was kind of, I was crazy youth, right? Growing up abused and just not. I really didn't know. I never really knew what I was doing. I was high most of the time and you know traumatized. So um, life was a bit of a crazy scene for me, But I managed to pull through. But it's been so difficult, and so that's why I just like to use my voice, to add to all the others out here, because there's some great people who, like I said, who are doing some wonderful work, and I just wanted to be one more voice, to say we really need to talk about this. If we're going to make any change, if we're going to make any difference in this mess, we do have to talk about it. It's so important. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I like to laugh, and I don't, as a survivor of abuse, I have my dark days, and you know, I had my dark days growing up, and everybody has dark days, down days, days where it's life is hard, and it's just like, okay, not laughing so much now, but I do like to laugh, and just, I do enjoy life. Sometimes I think that I don't, but I actually do, and I enjoy people and funny situations. But there's, it is always in the back of my mind, always this idea that, man, this is still going on, and nothing's changed. Children are still being abused, and it's so hard for these children out here. Who's gonna help them? Who's gonna save them? Who's gonna do anything to get them some help? And especially children, I mean, who have nobody, who are being trafficked, right? They're just passed on, from one place to the next, just being used in whatever way. And that breaks my heart because I can't even imagine that. Like I just, and I, like I said, I've met people and I know people who have been trafficked as children. So uh, that just, I can't even imagine what they went through and the fear and the trauma. And, even though I was abused as a child, that's, you know what I mean? It's like, it just breaks my heart. Oh, my boo is here. Donna Shear. Author advocate Donna Shear. Hi there. How are you? I'm so glad you could be here. Thank you for all you do. Donna Shear and Lee Roberts, those are my two besties from years back, helping me out. Donna Shear is originally the original editor of my book. She's the one who actually told me I should publish it when it was a blog. So Donna Shear is very much the reason why I'm here today and doing what I'm doing. She just pushed me along and said, "You got this, man. You can do it." So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm glad that you're here. And it's you guys have a wonderful AU4H, Advocates United for Humanity. I'm going to put the link in the actual show page. Has a on change.org has a petition going. I hope you'll all check it out. We're actually going to talk about it here one night. We're just going to talk about the whole entire petition that's going on, and so I'll be sure and post that as well. And I don't know if we'll be able to get Donna and Leon on the show, just depending on their schedules, and you know we'll see what happens. And if not, I'm still going to do a show on it. I'll still talk about it because I know what they're doing. And but we'll see if we can get them on here. That'd be great. And talk about the actual work that's being done. Donna Shear was responsible for Connor's Law, getting that Connor's Law passed. Um, Donna Shear's done some wonderful, wonderful things for children. She's a great voice for children. But she's just not even just a voice, man. She goes out there. She's action behind the words, and I love that. I absolutely love that. I think that's amazing, and that's what I said. I really appreciate people who are, um, I mean, I really can just use my voice. That's about all I can do. But there's people who are actually out there in the front lines who are saving children's lives. And especially with the situation with Ukraine right now, there's, like I said, there's five humanitarian aid groups out there right now with, hundreds of, if thousands and thousands of people out there trying to help save these women and these children that are running, right? And I'm like so thankful. And it's that's what it takes. That's what it takes, right? And I'm so thanks for being here, Claire McAndrew. I'm glad that you're here. That's wonderful. Thank you for being here. And I've got a troll who's posting here. I keep getting rid of him, but he keeps coming back. I have to keep getting rid of this troll. It's bugging me. So, ugh. Um, but yeah, we'll look at another couple of articles. And this is mainly what I'm doing. And it's 30 days. I'm just doing a whole month of April and child abuse prevention and child abuse prevention awareness. And we're just going to talk about it all, just as much as we possibly can in a month. Right? So you're stuck with me for the month. And I know, isn't that funny? I'm just like, this person's just, oh, I've already deleted and whatnot, but it comes back on with another link. It's the same guy or whoever it is. Let's see, we want to look at now that last article that was from theguardian.org. And they said the issue with these guys, now what the issue is these people who are claiming to be uh, trying to help these humanitarian aid groups are showing up at the border in Poland, and they're not sure who these people are, but some of them said that they are actually members or they're veterans of the French Foreign Legion. And so that's what this article is about. And it's from theguardian.com called Global Development 2022. So that article, if you pick that up, it's quite interesting. They said there's people out there who really not supposed to be there, you know, trying to stop traffickers. And that means there's a lot of people. But see, the problem being with that is that nobody's going to know who the real protectors are out there. And so now we've got groups of people in Ukraine who are trying to help. And then there's going to be other ones who are traffickers who are going to come along with uniforms that look such and such. And they're going to say, oh, we're trying to help too. So nobody's going to know who, you know what I mean? That's why they want to know who's there, what groups are there. Right now, I think they said there's five. There might be more now, but originally there was five groups. But they don't necessarily want people, vigilantes, just showing up saying, "I'm here to help," because there's too many traffickers who are saying they're there to help. That's what the traffickers are doing. They're sitting on the other end of the other side of Poland, on that border, and they're like, "Hey, we'll help you. We're here to help, right?" And these women with these children are getting into these cars and disappearing. And they said there's been thousands. They haven't been able to stop them all. That's the problem. Like they said, they have actually, stopped many thousands of women from getting into these vans and these vehicles with these traffickers. But they said there's some where they just can't get to them in time, and these women think that's fine. They jump in the vehicle, and they're gone. They're probably in Italy or somewhere around there, right? Who knows where they're at now, right? And who knows where they'll end up, and who knows where those children will end up. Most likely dead down the road after they use them for whatever they're going to use them for. And this is where it's like, oh my God, have we not progressed any? Obviously not. We have enough. That's what they said. For every predator that they shut down, there's like 1,000 more that just, child sexual predators or whatever. They shut down one, and there's another 1,000 behind them. That's how sick and twisted and absolutely messed up people are. That's why I say there shouldn't be any more court stuff. If you're found guilty of something like that, you should just be shot. Just a firing squad type situation. Line them all up and shoot them and get them off the planet. And because they're not doing any good, they're just hurting people, killing people. Even if they don't kill them, they trade them off to somebody who does get rid of them. And it's just not okay. Yeah, I mean, it's so. Oh, that's awesome, Claire. Yeah, watching the plane land in the UK for the Ukrainian kiddies, for the little kids. So glad that they're all okay. And I know. I mean, this is just a, yeah, it's a heartbreaking situation. Um, yeah, there's so many evil, twisted people out there who just love to exploit people, and they just can't wait for a situation like this because they're like, hey, there's a situation going on in Ukraine. Let's go on over there and exploit and grab some women and children. It's like, who sits around thinking about stuff like that? Obviously some sick, really sick and twisted people. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth of it. It's not okay. It never was okay. It's still not. However many thousands of years later that this has been going on, right? And when are we going to all stand up and say, that's enough? You know what I mean? Well, in a situation like this, what are you supposed to do? You can't just have, millions of people standing around a border saying, okay, if this happens, this is what we're going to do. It's just that you would think that with, with the education that we have on the planet today, the fact and the knowledge base that we have on the world in the world today, that people would sort of wake up and smell the coffee. You know, it's not okay to abuse people, but there's always going to be these people that just think it's just fine to abuse somebody. You know, that's I mean I'm an abuse survivor. My parents thought it was just fine. That's what you do to your children. That's what you do to your husband or your wife, and that's just what you do. And some of my siblings even that's just what you do with children. It's not okay. It never was okay. It never will be okay. So I always say that. I always have to throw that in there because I want people to realize that abuse is wrong, and we have to make enough noise and keep making enough noise. That's the only reason why these humanitarian aid groups are actually doing what they're doing. For instance, you know, UNICEF, any group that works with children. Save the Children. Oh, there's so many. It's just ridiculous. Uh, Protect Children. There's just, thank God there's so many. I can't even think of them all. I'm so happy. Um, you know, that didn't used to be the case. There used to be no groups saving the children. And the church, even though people say, well, the church was responsible for saving a lot of children, the church was also responsible for killing a lot of children, maiming a lot of children, and abusing a lot of children. The church has never really been all that great of an institution to save children. Let's just put it that way. Because I study history, so I know. Um, you know, it's only been recently that child rights came into play, and we're going to look at that. We're going to spend one night actually checking into that. The real rights that the world governments actually say, yeah, this is the body of information and rights that we know, and we're going to back up that we say are children's rights. Children have the right to life, they have the right to be protected, they have the right to not be abused, right? And this is on, I mean, every country pretty much. I mean, I don't know, there may be a few countries that don't go by it, but the majority of the countries do. And they realize, like, yeah, but this is also recent. It didn't come about until I think there was work being done in the 70s, maybe. I know when I was growing up, child abuse, I was born in 65. And so back then, you could abuse your children. It's not really that big of a deal. If their lives were being threatened, they might remove you from the home. They might not. That's why so many children die, right? But if your life wasn't being threatened, then you were just left in the home. That was what happened with in my case. So my parents were arrested and brought up on child abuse charges, but the courts decided, well, since it's just abuse, you're just beating on your children, kicking them around, it's okay. Um, so it's only been recently that things are starting to change, right? In the 70s, it was a little bit of work being done, I think, but to make these changes in the 80s, it started to get a little bit better. It really is just very recent that this is all, people are, working to try to protect children, to save them from abuse, and to save their lives, right? It's amazing. Yeah, no, I know. It's really, really tough. It's Donna shares, she says, abuse is never, in my recent experience, trying to get the central registry open like Michigan, like Megan's Law. Very few people want to help. That includes elected officials. That's so sad. No, it's true, right? A lot of people don't feel that it's that important. It's kind of like, well, is it really that important? Like saving children's lives, saving them from abuse, really? Like, I mean, that's kind of the attitude with a lot of government officials. Is kind of like it's low on the totem pole. It's like, yo, money is the issue. This is what you know. Um, Children have nothing to do with money, so they're very low on the totem pole. Right? It's kind of like, well, if we can save a few, that'd be great. They're not. There's no desire, or passion to really, you know, make a difference and change the situation for children. And it's really really hard. Yeah, that's right, April. The case of David Pelzer. And no, I know it's ridiculously horrible what happens and what children go through. I've known because I've done a lot of work, working with survivors of abuse, just in what I've been doing, advocacy work, and also working with support groups and stuff like that, which I won't name names. I have known a lot of survivors who have just been through such horrific stuff. I mean, it's horrible, right? No child should ever have to go through that. And, um, we'll talk about what abuse is and what abuse isn't and stuff. I've done lots of shows on this already, but like I said, I want to re-look at things and maybe look at some newer information, some updated information. But abuse is, I mean, everybody knows what abuse is. If it hurts and harms a child, it's abuse. You know what I mean? Um, we're not talking like, oh, discipline and stuff like that. Discipline actually is, you know, I was disciplined. I remember the difference, right? It's kind of like, yeah, okay, I know the difference between discipline and abuse, but some people like to make this big issue of it. But it's horrific, and so many children don't make it. They they're just killed, murdered outright, and you know the world says, oh well, isn't that sad? That's too bad. What can we do, right? Um, yeah, what can we do? How do we change this? How do we get the world to see to look at children in a different way? Children are not sex toys. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say it. The world seems to think that children are sex toys. It's like they still do. They have since time began, I'm sure. And it's just going on and on. Nothing's changed. And there's always been a group of people, and there always will be certain individuals who just think it's just fine to abuse children sexually, and children are not sex toys. No. And so, when are people going to change the way that they feel about children? Children are not put on the earth to abuse. They're really not. And it's bad. We're not. I mean, poverty and stuff like that's a bad issue. I feel so sorry for those children who they're dying from malnutrition. Their parents love them, I'm sure, and would do anything for them, but there's no food. There's many countries that children suffer in those countries with no lack of health care, malnutrition, and just illnesses, and they die, and it's just horrible. And I think about that, and I'm just like, that is so so sad. You know what I mean? And then I think about children who are just being abused and beaten and killed and murdered and tortured. And that's really sad because there's no excuse for that. And that's why I keep speaking out. There's no excuse for abuse. There just isn't. And it's not okay to abuse a child ever. And it's not okay in any way. I'm talking like it doesn't matter what the abuse is, it's just not okay. And, we need to change this. All of our voices are important, like I said, and getting involved wherever you can, locally. Look, know the signs, know what to look for, know the signs. Um, you know, know what to watch for. Children who are being trafficked. We're talking about child sex trafficking here tonight, so we'll just continue on with that. Children, especially in countries like we're tonight, I was focusing on Ukraine just because that's a real issue. But I mean, it's it's current events. But the well, thank you. I appreciate that, Donna. Well, so are you. And I mean, there's a lot of people out here talking, and we're just adding our voices to theirs. That's right. It's great to keep this going, not let it get shoved back under the carpet. Because see, if we don't talk about child rights and we don't stand up for child rights will disappear. It's just like human rights. If we don't stand up for human rights, and then they just disappear. So we have to keep talking, and we have to keep fighting, and we have to keep trying to save these children's lives. Because if we don't, it's just going to go back under the carpet, like hush hush. No, nobody cares. You know what I mean? Right now, there's a movement, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of great work to change this, and that's why we have to keep going. I figure as long as I'm on the planet, I've really got nothing better to do. I wouldn't want it. It's like not. It's this is my mission. It's like you know, I don't 24 hours a day do this, but I do keep at it because it's so important. I keep because I'm aware, you know, and it could be just because I care about children. Some people don't care about children, and that's a shame because children are human beings. They're not, you know, like I said, they're not sex toys and they're not punching bags and they're not there for anybody to use for any reason. Children are not on the planet to use. Children are human beings with the rights, you know. And where do people get off treating them like they're like they're not human and that they're you know that they don't matter and that their lives don't matter. You know, all of our lives matter. Whether it's an adult or a child. I mean, all human rights. We have human rights. Like it's very very important to not let this stuff go and let it get put behind the back burner as it was before where nobody cared. You know, and we have to just keep going. Right? So the issue with child sexual, you know, child sex trafficking, they look for vulnerable children. They look for children who are um, quite often on their own. These sex traffickers and you know people who try to get a hold of children, that do get a hold of children, if it's not in the family situation where a family's trafficking the child, if it's a stranger situation, they're looking for the children who are actually unattended. They're out in the streets, maybe they're alone, wandering around, nobody around. They're taken. Um, I know from I was really almost kidnapped like 3 times, and it's just thankfully some neighbors were looking out for me because otherwise, if the neighbors wouldn't have seen it, I would have been gone. And who knows what would have happened, right? So I was already being abused at home, so it wouldn't have been really any different. I don't think it might have been better, but the issue is I could have ended up dead, and I could have ended up dead at home too, but more likely from a stranger situation. It's just horrific. You know, these people, what gives them the right to just pick up a child? You know what I mean? Off the street just because they're playing in the front yard. Um, you know, Parents just don't think that there's anything wrong with letting their children play unattended without somebody looking on the situation. And to a certain age limit, you know what I mean. Young children, you just can't. You never could because children have been sexually assaulted since time began by adults. There's always been that issue. It's just it was always hushed up and nobody ever talked about it. So people who in the 1800s or early 1900s, children who were sexually assaulted by an adult, nobody ever knew about it really. They just keep it all hidden because they didn't want the world. They didn't want anybody to know because it was really it's the shame. We can't talk about this, right? And it's been going on forever. Some cultures, it's just part of the culture, and that's what they do, and it's just incredibly wrong. Children are not, their minds are not ready for that sort of thing. They're not. they're not adults. You know what I mean? They're not ready for that sort of thing. So it's not ready for any type of sex. They've got their own sexuality with their peers, that sort of thing going on, but they're not okay. They're not at all equipped to deal with adult sexual relations. And there's all these people that are lobbying. You know, we'll actually do a show on this because I'm going to do a show on child sexual, child sexual predators and prevention and whatnot. But there's a whole group of people lobbying to have children, lobbying the governments to have sex with children. They want this to be a law that it's okay, and it's just like, you know what? Why is this even allowed to go on? Why are these people allowed to stay on the planet? Seriously, like they're just causing problems for people. They're just hurting people, and there's people that just think that it's perfectly okay to do this stuff, and it's really not. So you know, we have to keep making noise because if we don't, it gets swept under the carpet. I know I've talked about this before, but you know, in the 1800s, um, the guy that actually wrote Oliver Twist, he was writing it as the book Oliver Twist. He was writing it as a column in a newspaper, Charles Dickens, and he would just put a certain amount into the to a newspaper column each week, and people started following it in London. I guess it was probably London, England, and people started following it, and they were like just shocked at the situation in this book that he was writing, Oliver Twist, about the treatment of his children and of Oliver Twist first of all, and of these workhouse children. And people were like, they just couldn't believe it that this would be real. And that is actually when the real work started being done. Because when his book came out, people, um, you know, people started to realize that that's a reality for children. You know, children just being just beaten to death. We're not talking a spanking. We're talking children, beaten to death. They're tortured, maimed, uh, and killed outright by institutions, by parents, by anybody, right? And they started to say that's wrong. Well, this all started in the 1800s, when he wrote Oliver Twist. I found that to be fascinating because I was like, wow, that's to me that's amazing, that he was, smart enough to realize if he put it in a column in a book form as a story, Oliver Twist, that people would read it. If you put it in a newspaper, if you put a story like that in the newspaper, most people don't care. They just pass right over it. They're like, whatever. But he was smart enough to realize if you put it in a book form and made it something as entertainment, people would get the point. You know that what was going on to the with the children, how the children were being treated, was incredibly wrong, and they actually started reforms at that time. So it's really interesting to go back and study the history of child abuse, child protection, and child abuse prevention. And there's been work done, but so much more needs to be done. And it's really going to take all of us to make a difference, right? And we can all only do what we can do in our little circles, right? In our own world. But I think that's where it is. That's what counts. Watch out for the children around you. Make sure that the children in your own life are not being abused. Make sure you know the signs and symptoms, what to look for, and make sure the children in your neighborhood, your if you have children, their little friends, make sure that they're not being abused. Just keep an eye out for the signs and symptoms of all the different types of abuse, and then do the right thing and make a phone call. You know, get that child some help. It's so important. You could save a child's life, right? So, I appreciate y'all being here tonight. Thank you very much. Um, and I'll be on every night. Some nights I'll do 7 o'clock. Some nights I'll do 8. I think Friday, Saturday, Sundays, because I work during the day. I can't do the show really till 8 because I don't get home till so late. So by the time I have something to eat and stuff, I'm like, I gotta have something to eat and sit down for a bit. And so I think, like tonight, I had to move it to 8 o'clock. So tomorrow night, 8 o'clock. Sunday night, 8 o'clock, and we'll just keep going. So I'll probably do a few of the show topics ahead of time, so if you want to join me here, you can. I really appreciate you being here, all of you. Thank you, Donna and Claire, and we got April, and my friend uh, Melanie. No, where did she go? Oh, Melissa. And I had Naked HD XYZ here all over the place. Who else did I have? It's so nice of you to be here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I feel empowered to speak out on behalf of children, um, because there's not much I can do. You know what I mean? I mean, I could write more books, or I could, write articles and stuff. There's plenty of material out there for people to get a hold of. I did want to write my story because it empowered me. It helped me on my healing journey, definitely. I saw the comment there. It was definitely healing for me to do that because I needed to get that stuff out. And um, I thought, well, I'm going to tell the world. I'm just going to tell the world. And, that way I don't have to carry this all by myself. It was horrible. And, well, it was killing me, so I needed to get it out. It was very much therapeutic. Um, and, just to be able to be a voice for people. I, I just know there's so many people suffering out there, so many survivors of abuse who, grew up abused, or domestic violence or whatever, even if they weren't abused as children and they're in a domestic violence situation. I know lots of people who've been through that. So many people have suffered abuse, different types, and it breaks my heart. And I just like to be a bit of support for people, right? To say you sure didn't deserve that. None of us did, and you sure deserve so much better, you know. And to not give up. Some days are hard, and actually some years are hard. Some times are hard. Sometimes it doesn't change. It doesn't change for a long time. Things don't always get better for a long time. And being on the planet now this long, I'm starting to figure that out. I'm like, okay, years will roll by and it's not that great, but I'm sticking it out, you know, and that's what I want you to do too. So it's great to be able to it's my fight to stay here with this fight. You know, my abusers couldn't kill me, and I'm certainly not gonna. I'm not gonna kill me. I'm sticking it out. You know what I mean? My abusers didn't kill me, so I think that's what motivates me to speak about this stuff. Is for every child that's ever been, whose voice has been snuffed out because they were killed and murdered or died from the abuse. For every adult who's ever been abused and and exploited and died from abuse. Um, no matter who they are throughout time. I'm glad to be a voice because, their voices were silenced, right? So that's kind of what keeps me speaking, and just keeps me motivated to keep talking, to be a voice for those people whose voices were silenced, right? We all need to be their voice, right? Have a wonderful night. God bless you all. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Take good care of yourselves, everybody. Have sweet dreams.